Again, everyone, for joining us. So my name is David Campbell. Today we are going to go over the document compare and overlay. Today I'm planning on diving into the compare and overlay tools within Bluebeam Revu. We're going to talk about a little bit about how these tools work, and then some tips and tricks in terms of getting them to go. And then of course diving into some different workflows that we can utilize those tools for. So a little bit about us. We are, as Topcon Solutions, the retail division to Topcon Positioning Systems. We are a complete solutions provider, meaning that we offer more than just software solutions. We also offer hardware, measuring and control hardware systems, and of course the complete office solutions, the software solutions through our partnerships with Autodesk and Bluebeam. And we also have industry-leading training and technical support, including field troubleshooting, local service and repair, and the widest range of everyday field supplies and accessories. Now, Topcon Solutions by the numbers. We are currently in 20 plus states, including Washington, D.C. We have 13 brick and mortar locations and 180 plus employees. Now, enough about us. My name again is David Campbell. I'm an application specialist with Topcon Solutions. I am a Bluebeam certified instructor and a Bluebeam certified consultant. So I'm going to dive into Bluebeam Revu here. And you'll notice that I got my second floor reference plan and I have a revision open up already. Now, typically, one way that I've seen users trying to kind of visualize some different changes between documents is to usually utilize the split screen. And if we use like split vertical, you'll notice that I can switch over to my revision. As long as I utilize the synchronize option, synchronize document or synchronize page, that will allow me to kind of zoom in, zoom out, and anywhere that I move in these documents, I'll be able to essentially move the same direction, same place in the revised document. Now, this is one way to start that process, that visual process of finding these different revisions. But as we all know, Revu has some tools that are pretty much dictated to go for this workflow. Now, you'll find document compare and overlay underneath the document tab. Now, document compare, I'm going to go ahead and get into this one here real quick. Compare documents, what you'll notice is it's a one-to-one comparison. And I don't mean like a one page to one page, it's a one document to one document. Now, I do have just one page, a one-page document here for this example, but you can utilize multiple pages within this. Now, when we're getting into set up our compare documents, what you'll notice is you'll kind of see up top here the drop down for document A and then document B. This is important, okay? I want to go down to the advanced options here for a second. The reason why knowing which document is A or which document is B is because down here in your advanced settings, what's going to happen with a document comparison is that Bluebeam is actually going to search through the documents to find any noticeable differences. And then it's going to put a revision cloud or the cloud markup over the top of it. Now, the reason I went into these advanced options is because you'll see down below here at the bottom, markup. This is where you can specify the color, the fill color, if you want to adjust the opacity, the subject itself. So by default, a lot of times this subject will come up as difference. And the reason why this is kind of beneficial as well is because, of course, as these cloud markups are placed on the document, it's actually going to track them in the markups list. So changing the subject here to maybe revision or leaving it as difference, it just gives you a way to kind of filter down and get a total count or an idea of where these revisions are in the document set and, of course, how many there are. Now, you'll also notice you have the cloud button as well as locked. So if you want these clouds to be locked as soon as they're placed on the document and you don't want to go ahead and essentially, you don't want anybody moving it around, we would lock it. But again, here's that apply to. This is where it's kind of interesting because you'll notice either we're applying it to the revised document or the original. So you should kind of take a look at which document you're placing under document A or document B, and just make sure that you're applying the cloud markups to the proper document. So I'm going to leave this a new copy of document A. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now you'll notice with the document comparison that we do have a manual alignment area. So What's nice about this is you'll see select window and pick points. Select window is if we know there's an exact portion of our plan that has changed, and that's the only part that we want to utilize. So in this case, if I wanted to use select window, let's say I obviously know there's a change here. I would go ahead and draw it around this area. And when I hit OK, it's going to let me know that it wants to apply the same region to document B. If I say yes, it's going to go ahead and give me just the clouded differences there. Now, this one was just one overall, but if you have offices or a space that has new walls, new doors, things like that, it's going to concentrate on that area instead of the entire sheet or the entire document. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this one real quick. I'm not going to save that. And I'll go ahead and run back through this one again. So compare documents. This time, I'm going to leave it with, make sure I'm going to grab my revision here. It does help sometimes to be able to, there we go. That is my revision. And essentially the other option that you'll see here, I'm going to clear this, is pick points, okay? Pick points essentially allows you to choose 3 points on each document to kind of manually align them together so they do fit for the comparison, okay? Now, the other option that you do want to look at is comparison type. Are these printed documents from the same printer? Are they from different printers, or are they scanned documents? This is just important in saying that Revu might need to run an OCR if it is a rasterized document or if it's scanned in. It might not be as clear, so Revu essentially needs to adjust the sensitivity of how it's looking at this document. Now I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and what you'll notice with our new revision document here is that it's gone through and clouded all of the differences that it sees, not just in the sheet itself, but also in the title block. So if I zoom in here, we can see that there are noticeable differences in my title block as well. Now, I will also tell you that sometimes Revu is a little sensitive. So we'll see just like right here, it's just a line style change or a line thickness change. So that's not something we really need to track as a revision or difference. So we can go ahead and delete those out. Okay, go ahead and hit delete here. There we go. Now, the other benefit to utilizing compare documents, well, like I said earlier, if we go down into our markups list, we're going to be able to find any revision that was made on this document. If you select it, of course, it's going to go ahead and essentially hyperlink if it's a different sheet, if it's a different page, right? It'll actually take you right to that specific sheet that it's located on. We'll also see, we can actually track a status with this. If any of you are using statuses, we can go ahead and say this is accepted, this has been completed, this is canceled. We can essentially track as these revisions are done, they're notated, and it just helps with that kind of process of tracking those different revisions to make sure that they were scheduled or accepted, things like that. All right, so that is the document comparison tool. Now, the other one that I want to show you guys today is going to be the document overlay. The document overlay is right underneath compare documents. And the way that this one works is that it's actually going to take both documents and essentially place the content or replace the content with a colorized layer. Okay, it's going to essentially change that color so that we can see exactly what it is. It's almost like a light table, how we can lay 2 documents down over a light table and see the differences. That's what's going to happen with our overlay documents. Now you'll also notice with overlay, I just hit the place point option there. So we have that same option in terms of aligning our different points, so that manual kind of alignment. Now you'll also notice if we get into modify, so you have to click on one of your layers and go into modify. This is how you can specify if we want to create a new layer for this. So if I know that this is going to be, let's say, original. Okay, there we go. I can specify my base layer color, the background, anything like that, and then say OK. Now again, this one, I can go into modify, and let's say this is going to be revised. Okay. Now at this point, I'm ready to go ahead and hit OK, but I want to talk about this one again for a second. So overlay is also essentially like a one-to-one. But the way that this works is that we can continue adding multiple files or multiple pages into the overlay kind of process. Now, I'm going to talk about this in terms of revisions, and as soon as I get done with this, I want to come back into overlay to talk about this one in a little bit more depth. So when I hit OK here, what you'll notice is it generates us a completely separate overlay document. And as I zoom in, I can clearly see the differences between the two documents. All right. What I really enjoy about this overlay document is the fact that I can go ahead and do something like a file save as, and I'm going to save this onto my desktop here. I really enjoy using this overlay document against the original, let's say, or even the revision, to run a document comparison on. So in this case, I'll utilize the overlay, and then I can go ahead and maybe say, you know what, I want to grab my original or my revision, either way. And when I say OK, it's actually going to go ahead and place those clouds right over the overlay document itself. In this case, I can see what has changed between the first document and the second document, instead of trying to do something like this with the synchronize where I'm going back and forth and panning around. I have all of that data here in my document with the actual clouds as well. So this is one kind of benefit of using this tool. The other one that I really want to talk about, the other workflow that I was pretty excited to talk about here, is if we think about the document comparison, or actually, excuse me, the document overlay tool in a little bit different light. In this sense, imagine if we had a second floor, architectural plan, a second floor mechanical plan, a second floor, structural plan. We can insert those different pages here by going to add, bring those different sheets together, and essentially do a 2D coordination process. So your overlay will show all of your different systems as they are in that PDF, again, assigning those different colorized layers. So we can utilize that for coordination. I did want to make sure I pointed that out. It is a very cool workflow. So that's compare and overlay. Now, one other thing I want to really get into as well, because if I didn't talk about it, I feel like I'd be doing all of you a disservice. And that's going to be the batch document, essentially compare and overlay, okay? Batch means essentially that you can pull in a whole list of files, or if you have a complete document set. So in this case, I'm going to go into my files. I'm going to find my construction set B, which is here under my sheets. And this is a 48-page sheet set. In this case, if I know that I have, let's say, 4 or 5 files that have been revised, but not the entire document, that's when I would go ahead and find my revised files here. So I'd go here, find my revisions, and there they are. I would grab all of my revisions here and insert them in. Now, the way that this is going to work, this batch compare, I can either choose to match by the page region, if I've already created those page labels using that tool in our thumbnails tool, or if I want to actually match them by the file name or page index. Of course, there's also a manual correlation option. I like using the page region. With this, I would go ahead and hit select, and then I would find the spot of my drawing that I know, so my sheet number essentially, the area that I know is going to match up between these different sheets, and I'm going to say okay. Once I do this and I hit match pages, it's actually going to go ahead and match any of these. It's going to search through the documents and match these different sheets together based off of those numbers. Okay, so we're going to see here, my construction set B has gone ahead and matched up with all of my revised files. At this point in time, I could say okay. And then it's going to ask me what kind of report do I want to create? Do I want a PDF or a CSV comparison? So in this sense, it's going to kick us out almost like a summary showing us the differences, but it's going to be hyperlinked to the original documents as well as the revised documents. All right, so our dialog has popped up here. And again, here's our format, CSV or PDF. I can, of course, go into my settings here, create hyperlinks, include those column headers, tell it where I want to put it. Now I'm going to put this right on my desktop. And at this point, I could go ahead and rename it and say, OK. Once I create this document, it's automatically going to open within Excel. And what you'll notice again is that the hyperlinks to these documents have carried through. They're not really lit up, but I'm going to go ahead and extend this out a little bit. So what we're going to see is we have our current page, the page region, the revised page, and then the actual differences. So if I go into the comparison documents here, when I click this, it's automatically going to open up within Review here. And there's a lot of differences in this one. So it completely clouded a lot of this one. All right, but for example, if I go back into, let's say, a 1.2.2, this one also has quite a bit of differences in it here. Now, I will advise here, another tip and trick that I can give for you guys is going into your settings when you're going to go ahead and do some of these document compare or overlay. You can make sure that if you want to include markups, that's something that you can turn on or turn off, okay, to make sure if markups have been placed in that document, if you do want to go ahead and notate that as well. All right, now the other one I wanted to go over was, of course, batch overlay. It works the same exact way in the sense that we can go ahead and bring our files in, we could add our different sheets in here, and then essentially create another kind of summary report that is hyperlinked to our different documents. Let me go ahead and close out of this one. I'm going to go ahead and run that for you all. I'm going to go to batch overlay. I'm going to add in my construction set B. And then I'll go ahead and find my revised documents here. It's the same process, essentially drawing a page region. There we go. And at this point, I could go ahead and do that again, match pages. It's going to go ahead and sort through those documents to find which ones do match up. And at this point, I could say OK. And this time I'll create a PDF from it and hit OK. Now you'll notice that in the PDF, it's saying that our revised page has been overlaid with this page to give us the overlay document. So in this case, I will see all of the different changes that have happened in this document to the next. And again, I can click on any one of these to go ahead and see what it looks like here versus what it looks like as an overlay. All right, so that is the compare and overlay tool. Does anyone have any questions on how those tools can be utilized?
Once again, if you have questions, feel free to insert those under the questions pane that should be located under your GoToWebinar control panel.
All right, so I'm going to get back into my presentation here. Before we go, I did want to mention again, there's a live event, our TSS Tap Tour in St. Louis on Thursday, September 9th at 4 p.m. Central. You can register on our website if you are interested in coming. Please come out. I'd love to have a beer and talk about Bluebeam with all of you. Now, the final thing is, does anyone have any questions for us?
We do have a question here, David, so I'm just going to pop that up really quickly. Okay, so first question here, can you adjust the sensitivity on compare documents, such as ignoring changes that are less than 1/16 of an inch difference?
That is a very good question, and let me get back in here and see if we can adjust that. So if we go back into our document and compare documents here in our advanced settings, we'll notice, yes, actually, so you can adjust the grid size here. The lowest that we're going to be able to go is 0.125, which I think is what, about an 8th, or is that a 16th? I think that's about the smallest that you can go here. Now, at this point, though, you would be able to go larger. So if you do a larger grid size, you might be able to essentially kind of override some of those lower, those smaller kind of changes. And then the color sensitivity as well, that might also help out. The pixel proximity allowance, we could also adjust that in the sense of, if we're looking at those rasterized documents, in that case, adjusting that pixel proximity allowance might help to eliminate some of those kind of, well, the clouds that are going to populate from differences, but it's really just your pixels.
Thank you so much again, everyone. If you do have any questions, there's still a little bit of time. Feel free to insert those into the questions pane, and I'm going to upload this information into the chat for you if you'd like to reference it.
Yeah, and for anyone out there, I did put up our YouTube and the our YouTube channel here, but you'll also see the www.topconsolutions.com/Bluebeam Revu. If you are interested in trying Revu out or trying some of these tools that we've been talking about in the Cold Brew Revu videos, you can go to this website for a free 30-day download, for 30-day trial, excuse me, a download for a 30-day trial of Bluebeam Revu.
We're going to leave this slide up for everybody to reference for a little bit longer. As David pointed out, that is definitely a great resource for anybody that is interested in downloading a 30-day free trial. So there will be links in the chat for everybody to reference, but thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.